Hey there. Tonight we step into worlds long gone, but not forgotten. We'll walk beside a woman clutching a dried toad for womb balance. We'll ride the steam of a 19th century train to a seaside town where donkey rides and penny ices change the course of happiness. And we all sit in silence with an Apache medicine man as he sings a healing into existence. This isn't just history, this is lived history. The kind that smells like garlic and holy water, sounds like a midwife's firm push, and feels like the first cold shock of a Victorian sea dip. We're diving into the raw, real, and often ridiculous truths of how people lived, loved, suffered, and survived. Long before epidurals, Instagram, or even basic hygiene. From the blood-soaked birthing stools of medieval Europe, to the bustling piers of Blackpool where factory workers tasted freedom in a cone of ice cream, to the sacred sand paintings of the Apache, where healing was a song, a color, and a prayer. We're exploring 34 extraordinary moments, rituals, beliefs, triumphs, and taboos that shaped human experience across centuries and continents. Each one a window into a world where life was dangerous, death was common, and joy had to be fought for. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments. Where are you tuning in from? And what time is it for you? It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, grab your herbal tea or your whiskey. No judgment, dim the lights, and let's begin. Because tonight, we travel back to a time when childbirth was a battlefield, the seaside was a revolution, and healing meant singing the soul back into balance. Let's go. Imagine this. You've managed to conceive without modern medicine, ovulation tests, or even privacy congratulations. You're now a vessel of divine mystery and village gossip. Your pregnancy begins not with a test strip, but with a clay pot of urine scrutinized for color bubbles or whether it smells like female essence while someone drops a rusty needle into it to divine your fate. Because why rely on science when vibes and superstition will do? By day 3, your vomiting gives you away, and within a week, the whole village knows, including the midwife who ominously warns you not to lift anything heavier than your own sin. Your diet becomes a circus. No eels. They'll make the baby slippery. No cabbage, flatulence, and heresy apparently. And absolutely no rabbit meat unless you want your child born with wild eyes instead. You're fed white bread apples and goat scraps while wearing charms of lead wolf's fur and a walnut. Carved with the Lord's Prayer because 9 births and 6 survivors means your mother-in-law is basically a fertility guru. You're told not to look at the moon, step over dogs, or think sinful thoughts about Brother Oswin. All while clutching a dried toad sewn into a pouch for womb balance. Yes, a literal mummified frog strapped to your hip. Your husband celebrates by getting drunk and boasting about his potent seed, but he won't be near you when it matters, because childbirth is women's work, and he'll spend labor pacing, praying, or sleeping. While you re-ushered into a darkened bedroom, the birthing chamber, where windows are shuttered to keep out demons or divine confusion, and the air is thick with hanging bundles of lavender, mugwort, and nettles that may or may not double as soup. In walks Agnes, the midwife battle-hardened, blood-stained, and radiating ancient competence, armed with a birthing stool, a knife, holy water, and a poker face forged in the fires of 100 births, including one with a goat wandering in. She doesn't do epidurals. She does prayer, relics, and a drink that tastes like wine and regret. While you bite on leather to muffle your screams, because too much noise might attract demons, or worse, judgmental neighbors. Labor has no cliconal contractions that come like drunken feasts, unpredictable and brutal, measured in rosary cycles and candle flickers. While you squat, kneel, pace, and curse your way through a timeline that could be hours or days, when the moment comes, you push on a wooden stool with a hole in a gravity's grim assistant, while Agnes catches your screaming. Slime-covered newborn, like a falling turnip, slaps its bottom for tradition, and hands you the baby before the cord is even cut with a fish-gutting knife, because antiseptic hasn't been invented yet. But if the baby doesn't cry, there's only silence. Panic sets in. Because an unbaptized soul risks eternal limbo, so the midwife scrambles for holy water, wine, or even spit to perform an emergency baptism. Performed by anyone herbalist cousin Mildred, even a goat herder, because salvation trumps credentials. And if the baby is stillborn, there's no celebration, only grief wrapped in theological uncertainty, as the village priest mutters vague prayers over a tiny grave. Once you survive, you're not celebrated, you're abandoned. No postpartum care, no ice packs, no lactation consultants, just bleeding fever. And back to work milking sheep, while older children demand food and attention. 40 days later, you endure the churching ritual of public purification to cleanse your spiritual impurity from childbirth where you finally allowed back into church after being banned for over a month like some kind of holy pariah. Then comes the constant shadow of infant mortality. 1 in 3 babies 1T survive the year. So you ward off fairies with iron nails and dung heaps, fearing your healthy child has been swapped for a changeling. You breastfeed with cracked nipples and prayers to Saint Agatha the saint with no breasts. Or hire a wet nurse bound by rules no sex, no garlic because her milk must stay pure, while animal milk risks deadly dysentery. And just as you catch your breath, the cycle resets. Your husband, having endured 40 days of abstinence, is ready to resume his noble duties. And you're expected to conceive again soon because contraception is sheep intestines and bitter herbs. And your uterus is seen not as yours, but as a communal production line. Yet despite the pain, the superstition, the blood, the ever-present threat of death, you press on because you've held a living, breathing child in your arms, and in a world of mud, fire, and disease, that tiny heartbeat is rebellion, miracle, and hope all wrapped in a swaddle. Picture this. It's the heart of the 19th century, and you've spent your life breathing coal smoke, clocking 12-hour shifts in a factory, calling a cramped, soot-choked alley home then. Suddenly, the railway arrives like a miracle on steel tracks, and for the first time, you and your family can pack a cloth bag, board a steam train, and by midday be standing barefoot on a sandy beach, staring at the endless, glittering horizon of the English Channel. This is the birth of the British seaside holiday or revolution, not of war or politics, but of joy. Once reserved for aristocrats who arrived in horse-drawn carriages convinced sea air could cure melancholy, the coast was now flung open to the working class, transforming sleepy fishing villages like Blackpool and elegant retreats like Brighton into roaring hubs of mass leisure. Factories paused, collars loosened, and for a few precious days, the grime of industrial life was washed away by salt spray and sunshine. The pier became the beating heart of this new world, Blackpool's North Central and South Piers, stretching into the sea like invitations to fun, lined with tea rooms, brass bands, penny arcades, and music halls, where laughter drowned out the clang of machinery. But modesty reigned supreme, and so came the bathing machine, a wooden hut on wheels rolled into the shallows, so women could change in private. Step directly into the waves and avoid the scandal of bare legs, all under the watchful eyes of dippers. Strong women who help shove you into the icy surf for that Olympian, invigorating shock believed to cure everything from weak lungs to low spirits. And oh, the treats children clutching penny licks. Tiny glasses of ice cream meant to be licked clean, and returned hygiene be damned. Sticky fingers wrapped around sticks of rock with the resort's name running through the center. Oysters sold like street snacks, and gingerbread men passed from hand to hand like treasures. For working-class families, this was paradise. Donkey rides along the shore, sandcastles rising and falling with the tide, Punch and Judy shows with their slapstick chaos, but in the sheer, unspoiled freedom of space, sun, and sound. Yet class still casts its shadow while the wealthy promenaded in tailored clothes, sipping tea in exclusive lounges. The masses, crammed into boarding houses, danced in packed halls and found joy in simpler things, their holidays louder, rowdier, and just as sacred. The seaside wasn't just fun. It was medicine, morality, and escape all rolled into one, a place where parents believed the bracing air could heal sickly children, where religious reformers fretted over frivolity, and where for the first time leisure was no longer a privilege, but a right claimed by the people. And when Queen Victoria's reign ended in 1901, the legacy was clear. The seaside had reshaped Britain, teaching a nation that rest wasn't laziness, but renewal, and that a donkey ride, a cone of ice cream, and the cry of gulls could stitch together the soul like nothing else. this wasn't just a holiday, it was a revolution in joy. For the Apache, healing was never just about curing a fever or mending a wound, it was about restoring balance. Sacred return to harmony between the body, spirit, nature, and community. Because illness was not seen as random misfortune, but as a sign that one had drifted out of step with the great web of life, where every action, thought, and relationship carried weight, and the land itself, mountains, rivers, animals. Plants was alive with spirit, demanding respect and reciprocity. At the heart of this worldview stood the medicine man, not a mere doctor, but a spiritual guide, a living bridge between worlds, chosen often through vision or trial, trained for years in chance. Herbs and ceremonies carrying the immense responsibility of diagnosing not just physical ailments, but spiritual disharmony, whether caused by broken taboos, neglected dreams, or disrespect to the natural world. Healing began with the earth's pharmacy, sage burned to purify, juniper used for stomach pains and protection, yucca applied to wounds. Each plant gathered with prayer and gratitude, never taken for granted because these were not mere remedies, but allies with their own spirits, and to use them without reverence was to miss the point entirely. Words themselves became medicine, chants passed down through generations, sung not as performance, but as sacred acts, their rhythms, mirroring the pulse of nature, calling upon holy beings to restore order with families joining in, so that healing became a chorus of support, a collective affirmation that no one suffers alone. And then there were the sand paintings, elaborate sacred maps made from crushed stone, pollen, and charcoal, laid upon the earth in precise, symbolic patterns of animals, mountains, and spirits, into which the patient was placed at the center, becoming part of a living prayer, a visual restoration of cosmic balance, only to be swept away when complete, teaching that sickness, like the image, is temporary and can be erased. Ceremonies like the night chant or the sunrise dance stretched over days, weaving together song, dance, prayer, and ritual into immersive experiences where the entire community gathered, not as spectators, but as participants, reinforcing that healing is never solitary, but a shared journey back to wholeness. Sacred landscapes, hidden groves, mountain springs, quiet riversides became natural sanctuaries where the presence of the spirit world was strongest, and medicine men would lead patients into these places, where the wind carried prayers and the earth offered strength, because true healing could not happen apart from the land that gave life. Animals were not just resources, but teachers and protectors, the eagle carrying prayers skyward, the bear embodying endurance. Even insects reminding the people of persistence and unity, each a thread in the same web of existence. And through it all, the community stood as the final medicine. Family and neighbors gathering to cook, pray, and sing, ensuring the sick were never isolated. Teaching children by example that health is not an individual possession, but a shared responsibility, a circle that only holds when everyone is included. Though centuries have passed, this way endures not as a relic, but as a living tradition, where modern Apache people still blend ancestral ceremonies with contemporary life, preserving a truth the modern world often forgets, that to be healed is not just to survive, but to live in balance with oneself, with others, and with the earth that sustains us all. In the medieval world, marriage was never just a matter of love. It was a public contract written in bloodlines, land deals, and divine law. And nowhere was this more brutally clear than on the wedding night, when the private act of consummation became a spectacle of politics, proof, and pressure. The bedding ceremony transformed the bridal chamber into a stage. Guests paraded the couple through the hall with torches and raucous songs. Attendants undressed them with ceremonial hands and in noble houses. Witnesses might even tuck them into bed beneath a blessed linen sheet, staying long enough to ensure the marriage was well and truly joined, because without consummation, the union wasn't legally binding, heirs could be disputed, and alliances shattered like glass. Fertility was the night's unspoken headline, wheat scattered on the bed for abundance, honey consumed for sweetness and conception, eggs eaten in secret, and the word honeymoon itself echoing ancient rituals, where newlyweds drank mead for a lunar month to quicken the womb. The church loomed over it all, policing the act with theological precision. Sex was permitted only for procreation, banned on holy days like Lent and Advent, and restricted to the missionary position, with priests later demanding confessions about bedroom conduct, turning intimacy into a sacrament under divine surveillance. Proof of consummation could make or break a dynasty. In royal marriages, blood-stained sheets were displayed, like battle trophies preserved as legal evidence that the bride's virginity had been confirmed and the marriage sealed. While accusations of impotence or unconsummated unions could land couples in ecclesiastical courts where physicians and bishops debated the most private details in public. Virginity was a woman's currency, her honor, her family's reputation, the guarantee of pure bloodlines while men faced no such scrutiny, entering the bed with experience unchallenged, revealing a double standard as deep as it was brutal. To protect the couple from jealous spirits, evil eyes, or ill omens, folk magic wove through the ritual, rue and rosemary tucked beneath. The mattress iron keys placed by the bed to repel demons' candles left burning through the night and charms. Carved from bone or shell to ensure fertility, all blending church, doctrine with ancient superstition in a desperate bid to make the night go smoothly. Yet beneath the ceremony and the spells lay raw human anxiety, brides trembling with fear. Often teenagers with no knowledge of sex, dreading pain and the public scrutiny of their bleeding. Grooms sweating under the weight of expectation, where failure meant humiliation, annulment, or political disaster. Humor crude and loud became the pressure valve, neighbors banging pots outside. The cottage singing bawdy songs about what the couple should be doing, tossing nuts and grain through the window, turning intimacy into a communal joke that masked the very real terror of performance. And though by the late Middle Ages these rituals began to soften witnesses retreating, privacy slowly returning, the church's grip loosening, echoes of that public night remain. In the tossing of rice, the myth of the honeymoon, and the enduring weight we place on that first night together. A ghost of an age when love was never just personal, but a matter of lineage, legitimacy, and survival. And so we return. From the blood-stained birthing stool to the donkey-dotted beaches of Blackpool. From the sacred sand paintings of the Apache to the candlelit chaos of the medieval wedding night, we've walked with women who bled for love, children who tasted freedom in a penny lick, healers who sang souls back to life, and couples whose first night was everyone's business. This isn't just history, it's lived history. Raw, real, and often ridiculous, but always human. We look back not to judge, but to understand, to see how far we've come, and to wonder what we might have lost along the way. So thank you for being here, for listening, imagining, for staying until the end. If this resonated with you, if you felt something, please consider liking, subscribing, and sharing this with someone who believes that stories matter. And drop a comment. Where are you watching from? What time is it for you? Because somewhere, right now, someone else is listening. 2. Maybe in a city lit by neon, maybe in a village under stars, and we're all here together, remembering the past. Till next time, stay curious, stay kind. And remember, even in the darkest centuries, there was always a mother holding a baby, a child laughing on the sand, a song healing a broken spirit, and a couple nervous and hopeful. Stepping into the unknown, we are not so different. This has been Echoes of the Past. I'll see you in the next story. Music fades out slowly.